Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this very highly requested video where I'm going to share with you my top 10, plus a few because I'm me, my top 10 favorite tarot guidebooks. So let's get into it. I'm going to be counting down from 10 to 1 and then we're going to get into a few honorable mentions. So buckle up. I'm probably going to be talking for a little bit. You know how I roll. Grab yourself a beverage, do whatever you got to do. Let's get started. So coming in at number 10, I want to talk about the guidebook that comes with the Pacific Northwest Tarot by Brendan Marnell. And this little white book is absolutely fabulous. So this is definitely a recent major favorite of mine. It's one of the things that I love the most about the deck. And the reason is that as you can see, it's actually a really plain book, right? There's no pictures. It's not fancy layout, nothing. But the text is so incredible. So let's actually grab a sample card and I'll share with you what I mean. So here is the Pacific Northwest Tarot. The artwork, hello. It's gorgeous. But let's do a quick little sample draw and I'll give you a feel for the guidebook and why I love it so much. And if you want to hear me gush about this even more, go check out my full walkthrough of this deck. But for now, we have the King of Wands, who's this gorgeous, coyote, wolf, something. Y'all know I'm not great at animal identification. But let's take a look at the King of Wands. He's a gray wolf. So if we get keywords, which is great: leadership, vision, control, decisiveness, execution, competence, and charisma. But then it says, the father of the pack sniffed the air and his tail gave an involuntary wag. A deer, likely several. His family was hungry. The youngest especially, and it was his responsibility to provide. Following the scent, he directed his pack forward. He guided them, teaching the youngest how to gauge distance by the strength of the scent and the speed of the wind. When they were close, he struck out with several of the yearlings and their older siblings. He directed their motions, sending them along hoof-worn trails and ridges, always downwind of their quarry. He split the group and circled back to guard the rear. Maybe it was a rustle of undergrowth or a paw placed too heavily. Maybe it was the uncanny self-preservation of prey. Somehow, the deer sensed something was wrong. They shifted restlessly until they caught the first scent of wolf in the air, and then terror set in. But when they turned back to flee, the alpha was waiting. Panicked eyes met smiling ones. The pack leader watched with pride as his children took down their prey. He let the youngest eat first. Now, I'm almost goosebumpy just reading that. It's literally like reading a story. And what's so brilliant about that is because it takes you right into what's happening in this particular card. It gives you so much information about the context and the contextual meaning of the card, which is an incredible gift to somebody working with this deck because they will really get to know these characters and these stories as they get comfortable working with the guidebook. It just blew me away when I first got it, and I had to give it a mention here in my top 10 favorites. There are other guidebook books that do this. Some of Barbara Moore's guidebooks in Llewellyn sets do this, such as in the Tarot of a Hidden Realm, but this is the most brilliantly executed one I've encountered, in my opinion. This is my favorite of ones that have that style. And it was so unexpected in a little white book that I was just really, really excited about it. And it does that the entire way through. You get just a little bit of a narrative about what's happening in the card, as well as you also get the keywords and you get the name of whatever the creature is in the card. It's just a very well executed deck and book. So that is my number 10. Coming in at number 9 is the Everyday Witch Tarot Guidebook. Now, this is a Llewellyn set guidebook, and the Everyday Witch Tarot Guidebook is written by Deborah Blake, who is the creator of the Everyday Witch Tarot, and the art in this deck is by Elizabeth Alba. Now, I mean, you might be surprised to see a basic Llewellyn guidebook coming into one of my top 10s, but the reality is that Llewellyn does do a really good job in general with formatting and laying out and making sure that their guidebooks are beginner friendly. And this is a deck that I think is such an incredible beginner deck to begin with. But one of the things I really appreciate about this particular deck's guidebook is that you have your image of the card. You also have a little kind of fun thing that happens over on the side of the page that has the information about the card. So like here for the Ace of Swords, it says, ta-da! Or if we go into the Judgment card, it says, here we go again. If we go to a different one, Ten of Wands, I've got it, maybe I don't got it. And it's so It so immediately helps with getting, again, into the story of the card. And then the information that you'll find on the opposing side's page is a little snippet that gives you a good idea. So here for the Ten of Wands, the little snippet here is, life can hand you a lot of burdens to carry. Only you can choose which ones to keep hauling around and which ones to put down. These two snippets by themselves give you a really good quick snapshot of what the card's all about. Then you get to go even deeper and you get a little bit about what's happening in the image of the card. And then you get some things to consider, which talks more about the meaning. And it just does this very effectively the entire way through the guidebook. And I just think it's a really, really well done deck and a really, really well done guidebook. I mean, I should admit as well that I have had a good experience with several other of Deborah Blake's books, one of which was the Guide to Everyday Witchcraft, or 365 Days of Everyday Witchcraft, I think is the one that I actually read. She's also got a really good book for beginner witches on rituals that is really excellent. But Deborah Blake's style is very much fresh and kind of clean and modern. It's not muddied up with a whole lot of extra gunk. It's not heavy or esoteric in that deep kind of way. And it just makes decks like this to really accessible for somebody who's just picking up the tarot, especially for the first time. And it was just one that I've always really, really enjoyed. Oh, for the most part, what I love about, there's also lots of these blank notes pages. I just think if you were going to be getting a beginner deck or you wanted to get started with tarot, this is just a really great one to start with. It's really easy to understand, and I think it's really well done. Anna K Tarot Handbook. Now, this is another mass market deck. This particular deck is also Llewellyn, but it doesn't have the standard Llewellyn format. Now, this is the version that I have of the Anna K Tarot's guidebook, and this one is a printing. Oh, this is the first printing from 2013, so this is the first edition, Llewellyn edition. I don't know if the book is formatted the same way, but this is an incredible tarot guidebook. And so it comes in just a step above Everyday Witch because it's another mass market beginner friendly deck. If you haven't seen the Anna K, it is a wonderful and very, very expressive deck. Mine's actually in order because I did use this deck not that long ago, actually, in my last Troubleshooting the Tarot Q&A sort of live stream that I do to help people get over their tarot reading humps. I'll try to remember to link that somewhere for you. But the court cards in this deck are excellent. It's a wonderful deck. But deck aside, the book is part of what makes it such an excellent deck for all types of readings, but especially for people newer to tarot. Couple of things that it does here. So it's written to give you lots of information in the beginning, but then when you get it, like it even talks about upside down cards, which is great. And then when you get into the actual card meanings, yeah, here's a good example. So here we have the write-up on the Magician card. So you have a black and white image of the card, you have some information about the Magician, and then there's these tips throughout. So for example, this particular one says tip. The meaning of the Magician becomes clearer when compared to the card that describes the opposite experience, the Wheel of Fortune. This card stands for the experience that many things cannot be influenced, thwarted, or made to happen. It stands for the experience when blows of fate happen to us just like that. So whereas the Magician is talking about manifesting and creating the future that you want, like influencing your future, influencing your life, it's explaining that the Wheel of Fortune actually is about when change happens, but you can't influence it, right? And so it has that throughout. It's got really helpful tips like this all the way through. Like here's another good one. Here's the High Priest, which is like the Hierophant card. And it says, tip, if you have trouble keeping the High Priest's meaning distinct from that of the High Priestess, keep in mind that she stands for a spirituality that is without dogmas or beliefs that can be expressed in words. A spirituality that is content resting in the now without having to fix anything. Whereas he is all about the spiritual search for meaning, for religious principles. He is about the what of your beliefs, the part of your beliefs that can be expressed with words. And these kinds of tips are peppered throughout this book. It's incredible. Here's a compare and contrast of the Sun card with the Nine of Cups. When you get into the court cards, or even this ace, there's a tip about the aces. It's so incredibly helpful, and I've never yet seen any other guidebook that does this specific thing, where you're looking at a particular card and it helps you to compare to other cards, or it talks about the other similar cards in the deck. I just think it's incredible, and it's often overlooked. It's not a deck that I hear people talk about a ton, and it's certainly not a guidebook that I hear people talking up, but it is wonderful. In the back, you do have some simple spreads, including a relationship or friendship spread, a birthday or New Year's Eve spread, which is only 5 cards and is actually really good. There's a systemic card reading information here, and it's just a really, really good guidebook that goes along with an excellent deck. So this one comes in my number 8 spot. It's time for book number 7. So coming in the 7th position, we have the the Book of Pandas by Kimberly San. So this deck is illustrated by Celia LaBelle. If you haven't seen the Way of the Panda Tarot by Kimberly San, then where have you been? It's absolutely adorable. This deck, it's an independent deck, and it does actually come with, and this is worth pointing out actually, it does come with a little white book. So the Book of Pandas is a larger book sold separately. To be completely fair, I haven't spent a ton of time with the little white book because I do have the Book of Pandas, so I can't really speak to that. But in this number 7 spot is this specific book, the Book of Pandas. Did I even show you any of the cards? I don't think I did. There we go. So if you haven't seen The Way of the Panda, it's adorable. It's charming. It's really beautifully illustrated. But here's what's incredible about the Book of Pandas. For starters, so it says the official guide to walking the way of the panda. Now, there's a bunch of incredible things about this book, but one of my favorite things was there is a section early on that says, how much of a panda are you, with a scoring guide? And this is literally one of those personality quizzes, much like you would see in like a magazine or something. It was so fun to do. And then you score yourself and you get to read about what kind of panda you are, which is amazing. There's a ton. I mean, when I say there are a ton of tarot spreads in this book. Really excitingly, for every single major arcana card, you get a little bit of a narrative about what's happening in the card, which again, you know I love. Then you get some information about, it's got some information here about the panda power up, which is sort of like, it's kind of like you're interacting directly with that panda and getting advice from them, which is again amazing. Then you get this little section underneath that, which is like specific tips from this card to you. And that happens in every single one. And then you get a specific tarot spread, usually around a 3-card spread for every single major arcana card. It is out of this world. Kim did such an incredible job with this book. Remains one of my favorite tarot guidebooks ever. It's wonderful. And the minor arcana is just as juicy. So here we have the layout of not the minor arcana, sorry, the court cards is laid out so that you get information about who the Queen of Wands is. Then you have a section about panda for hire, which is like, talks to me about her sort of what her strengths are, what this character's strengths are. Then you have panda disclaimer, which is like what maybe the less helpful aspects of the card. So you get kind of the positive and the more difficult aspects. And that's through all the court cards. And then the regular minor arcana is, again, just really meaty. Like, she doesn't skimp in any place in this book. I mean, how many pages is this thing? It's like, oh, there's some note section. Hold on, where are we at? Somewhere around 275 pages or so. And I still have my Way of the Panda Tarot bookmark that I keep in here. It's an excellent, excellent tarot guidebook. So again, this would make a wonderful set if somebody was just getting into tarot and they want something really comprehensive to start with. I would definitely get them both. And of course, I will have links for everything I'm talking about in the description down below. I've tried to keep my top 10 only stuff that is currently still available. So I hope that's true. Hopefully I've done my research correctly. But the Book of the Pandas is incredible. It's so, so good. So that was my number 7 pick. Coming in at number 6, we have the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. So the Witch's Wisdom Tarot is another mass market deck. This one was published by, does it tell me here on the Hay House? This is a Hay House publication. The actual deck is it is unique. It is wonderful. It's nature-based, but it takes you on a journey through the major arcana backwards. And I did a really deep dive sort of walkthrough on this deck, which I will link for you as well. I'll try to have links to everything down below, assuming that I have walkthroughs for everything or some kind of video. I'll put the deck link, and then I'll also put a link for whatever video is associated in the description box. But this has a unique system, but it's incredibly witchy and nature-based, and it reminds me of what it felt like when I first discovered earth-based spirituality. That's what this deck feels like. It's wonderful. But the deck aside, I spent a lot of quality time both with this deck and with its guidebook, and the guidebook is incredible. Now, keep in mind, I am already a big fan of Phyllis Curat's writing style. By the way, the artwork of the deck is created by Danielle Barlow. But in this guidebook, the writing style is so fluid. There are some wonderful spreads. The writing style is really fluid. So you get wisdom, essence, counsel, and magic. And what I love about this is that the wisdom really is a beautifully written narrative kind of style. Again, you can tell that I have a thing that I like in tarot guidebooks, but it's got a bit of a narrative style. And it talks about what's happening in the card. You also have the the name of the card. So this is the 9 of air. So it's suit and its number. But then you also have like a keyword, a single keyword associated with that card. So for the 9 of air, the keyword is transition. Talks it through. You also have, so you have this sort of narrative piece, the wisdom. Then you have essence, which is kind of like your primary keywords. Then you have counsel, which is like advice, right? So it's giving the information to you in a few different ways, which I always appreciate. And then there is magic. And this is like a spell suggestion, some kind of ritual or spell or activity you can do to engage with the energy of this card. It's really thorough. And again, if you wanted to get a tarot deck that was going to have that magical feel or get you into maybe practicing magic, this is really done well. And in my opinion, it's also done incredibly respectfully. And I love that about this. I love the structure of it. The working through the major arcana reversed by starting with the world and going all the way back to the pilgrim is a really empowering way to look at the major arcana and the fool's journey from the perspective of somebody who's already lived a bunch of life. Like, we often forget that we come to the tarot to help unpack our baggage, and that is what this deck helps you do, and the guidebook takes you through that process in a really powerful way. And I really think this is special. It's really unique in my collection. I don't have anything else that takes me on this kind of a journey, and I just think it's incredibly well written. It feels almost poetic in its style, and I love that about it. So that's the first 5. We're now counting down to position number 5. And we have the Robin Wood Tarot, large, sold separately guidebook. Now, Robin Wood is somebody who has been incredibly influential to me on my pagan path, and as a result, I have special fondness for Robin Wood's work. In particular, the Robin Wood Tarot has a lot of meaning for me. I actually didn't get it when I was much younger, and I regret it because it's such a powerful, well thought out deck where every single thing is on the card for a purpose. All the symbols are meaningful. I ended up doing quite an intense deep dive of this deck, which again, I will link in the description box. It is one of my favorite, if not, I guess, my favorite classic tarot deck from back when there was a much more limited selection of decks. The symbology is just so spot on, but it also has a very distinct pagan, witchy, kind of old school Wicca kind of flavor to it, which I adore. One of my favorite things about this deck is the court cards. For example, here on the page, our pages have something hanging from their belt, and our little page of pentacles has a little book hanging from their belt. And it's quite helpful when you're learning the courts to work with a deck that has such thoughtful symbology. It's why the Rider-Waite-Smith is so successful, in my opinion. But the Robin Wood is just really wonderful, particularly if you want something that feels just a little bit more pagan and a little less Christian. This can be a really nice choice, but it still has all of the traditional symbology you come to expect. What makes the guidebook so incredible is that because everything in the card is there for a reason, let's come back to our page, I guess, of Pentacles. This separate guidebook goes into all of that information. There's also some really wonderful extra chapters in this book on things like tarot ethics, as well as the story of Persephone, the Wheel of the Year. There's also the rules for the game Taroki, which I think is so cool. So this is something that I just needed to have in my, I just turned to it automatically. Did you guys just see that? That was so cool. That was amazing. Okay, anyways, I love it when that kind of crap happens. Okay, so here we have, this is what the guidebook entries look like. So you have a little description of what you see happening in the picture, but then you get quite a meaty couple of pages on the card itself. And one of the things that is very specifically done in these descriptive pages is every single artistic choice that was made on the card is pointed out and explained. So for example, her belt is very wide to show that she is a sturdy thing, not easily swayed or confused. From it hangs a book, bound in green and purple with a design of gold and gold leaf on the page edges. When I first began to read the cards, I had problem with all of the pages. I couldn't remember what they were supposed to mean. So when I made my deck, I gave them symbols to help me remember. This one has a book because this one is involved with study and learning. It's bound in green and purple for the growth and richness that are present in all these court cards. On the front of it is a pattern that shows an old-fashioned rose in gold with scrolls above and below it. Honest, look carefully. I did that to show her sweetness, and also because this child is often seen as being a little old-fashioned. And it goes on from there. Every single artistic choice that Robin Wood made for this deck is described and explained so that as you get to know this deck, you can come to learn all of that symbology. And not only does it help you learn this particular deck really well, but then you have that information to go back to or to lean into when you work with other decks. And it's so successfully done. It's incredible. And I don't think you necessarily need this book to really spot all the symbols in the deck, but boy, it really adds to your experience of it and your knowledge of tarot. It's just, there's so much here to dig into. And Robin Wood, I believe it was just last year, passed away. And this feels so much more special to me as a result. And I'm a little bit nervous that this book or this deck will go out of print. I hope they don't, because they're so important to, in my opinion, to the conversation around tarot. And I would be super sad if they went away. You should know that if you buy just the deck, it does come with a little white book, which again is excellent, but only really gets into the meaning of the cards. It doesn't take the time to get into all the various symbols. And that's one of the things that are extra special about getting this full-size guidebook. It took me so long to purchase this. Like, I had the deck for a long time before I got this, but it just wowed me. It just blew me away. And the funny thing is, I actually got this book after I did my deep dive walkthrough of the deck, which should tell you something about how explicit the symbols are. But anyway, this is one of my very, very favorite tarot guidebooks, and I needed to mention it here. That brings us to position number 4, where we have the Osho Zen Tarot. I have to mention this because this was really the guidebook that taught me tarot. And I say that carefully because as it happens, and I've told this story before on my channel. If you haven't seen the Osho Zen Tarot, this is my OG copy, the one I've had since the 90s. This is a piece of my tarot history in so many important ways. But one of those important ways is when I first got this deck. It was my first deck and my only deck for years and years. But when I first got this deck, it came in a set that looked like one of those VHS like tape cassette boxes. I don't know if they still sell them in that. I think it's in cardboard now, but it came in one of those sets. And this guidebook, I just remember digging into it and getting completely lost in it, because the way that the guidebook is set up, it has commentary on the left and more of, I would say, a kind of like thoughts for contemplation on the right. And what I found when I first got this deck was that I was really drawn to this little commentary page because it describes what's happening in the artwork. So let's just grab a card here. We'll just go to Sorrow, which is the 9 of Air or the 9 of Swords, and find it here. We're in Capsa. Oh, right to it again. Almost right to it. So I really never got into this side of the book very much. But what I found myself doing when I first got this deck is I pulled out the deck and I read through the guidebook, and I read every one of these commentaries. So each one of them tells a bit of a story of what's happening to the main character in the card. So for example, this one says, the image is of Ananda, the cousin and disciple of Gautam Buddha. He was at Buddha's side constantly, attending to his every need for 42 years. When Buddha died, the story is told that Ananda was still at his side weeping. The other disciples chastised him for his misunderstanding. Buddha had died absolutely fulfilled. He should be rejoicing. But Ananda said, you misunderstand. I'm weeping not for him, but for myself, because for all these years I have been constantly at his side, but I have still not attained. Ananda stayed awake for the whole night, meditating deeply and feeling his pain and sorrow. By the morning, it is said, he was enlightened. Times of great sorrow have the potential to be times of great transformation. But in order for transformation to happen, we must go deep to the very roots of our pain and experience it as it is without blame or self-pity. And this is how the entire guidebook is written. It just felt like I learned so much from the book that what I did was I read every single story and worked with the guidebook for like a very short time, maybe days. And then I threw the guidebook away, which, you know, today's me was kind of horrified that I actually just straight up threw it away. I literally just, I think I recycled it or whatever. I don't know what I did. It was in the 90s, right? I probably just threw it in the garbage because, you know, like who knows? But I got rid of it. And then I worked with the deck from memory only and with the artwork just by itself for years and years. And it was such a treasure, and it taught me so much about myself. It helped me in really tough times. It carried me through, and I had such an incredible experience with it. But then, of course, a few years ago, I missed having the book. And so I found somebody in my local area was selling a used copy of the deck with the book for like 20 bucks. I picked it up from them. The extra set of cards are in storage for me as, I guess, a backup deck. And then I now have the guidebook. But there was something about the storytelling nature of the cards and the very sort of, to me, what felt very kind of Buddhist sort of in its philosophies, kind of Eastern philosophy. It met me where I was because I really didn't want something that felt this was what I was drawn to at the time, right? I was really drawn to this kind of thinking. And my witchy practice at the time was very eclectic, but with a really heavy sprinkling of this kind of thing. And so it just ended up being something that met me where I was, and it was perfect. It felt like it was psycho-spiritual enough that I could get into the psychology of tarot without getting too woo, but it also let me get woo when I was ready to get woo. You know what I mean? Are you guys loving my use of woo in a sentence here? But yes, so this is my number 4 favorite tarot guidebook. Coming in at number 3, and you've probably heard me rave about this one before, is the Druid Craft Tarot Guidebook. I actually have 2 copies of this because I have 2 copies of the Druid Craft Tarot. I have my original copy, which this is the book that goes with my original. And then I also have a second copy that I got so that I could film I could write the keywords on the deck so that I could film it for my Tarot with Training Wheels series, which I will try to have linked somewhere. It's such an incredible deck, but it's an incredible book. If you haven't seen the Druidcraft Tarot, I guess I can show you what I'm talking about. So I do have 2 copies of the deck. Here's my trimmed copy that I've edged in brown. It's a very druidic kind of, it has a sort of, it does have a very druidic feel. I realize that's kind of on the nose, but it is true. It is kind of how it feels. It feels very, very Celtic. It's wonderful. I really do enjoy this deck. And then I also have, this is the newer copy that I got so that I could write the keywords on it. And I do plan to retrim this deck, probably down to just the artwork. Is what I'm probably going to end up doing. I haven't decided yet. We will see. But I do have 2 copies of this deck so that I was able to use it for Tarot with Training Wheels. And the guidebook I have used, oh gosh, in so many different ways. But one of the ways that I used this guidebook was actually in my Tarot Memoirs series, which was the first sort of educational kind of tarot series I ever did on the channel. I started it when I was brand new to YouTube. And in Tarot Memoirs, I basically take everybody along with me as I share each major arcana card and my experience with that card in my actual life. And then I also go through all of the court cards, and then I also go through all the minors, and I do them in groupings. So the majors, I do 1 video per card, and then I start to group them for the rest. It was a very long series, took me a long time to complete, but I did use Druidcraft Tarot in several places in that series, the guidebook specifically. There's so many things to love about this guidebook. And this is the St. Martin's Press edition I'm showing you right now, but I've seen other copies and the newer copies, and they look the same to me. So the neat thing about this deck is that it's really excellent specifically with getting to know, in my opinion, numerology of the cards and some of the esoteric kind of groupings. So for example, in this guidebook, when you get into the court cards, which is actually where the guidebook begins, you have an introductory page for all of the princes. Princes being like the knights of the tarot. And in the introduction page, you get to learn a little bit about the energy of the prince in general. Then it has sections for each individual prince where you can get to know that particular card. It does the same thing for the queens. But what's brilliant is that it also does this in the numbered cards. So you have a full page of information about 10s and what 10s can mean. And then you get into each individual 10. 10 of Wands, 10 of Cups, 10 of Swords, and 10 of Pentacles. And it does the minor arcana and the courts. You can see I've like highlighted and marked up this book. A lot of this was prep for my Tarot Memoir series, where I've got a lot of stuff in here about the numbers and the different cards. It's wonderful. And then it also, for the major arcana, gives you the quest of the grail and the process of individuation. This is a lot about like the fool's journey and one particular lens of looking at that journey, which is amazing. Talks about druidry and Wicca and so much more. It's a very in-depth guidebook, and it's just incredibly well done. Some of the spreads in here are so good. In fact, are they in the end or the beginning? I think they're in the end. How to use the cards. Where is it? Ah, yes. This is one of my favorites. The Spirit of the Circle spread. This is so good. It talks about spirit of the ancestors, spirit of place, spirit of time, spirit of the tribe, which is like your community, and then spirit of the journey. And then there's an Awen as well. So if you're looking for a more Celtic look, here's a Chalice and Wand spread. There's a lot of great stuff here. And there's, of course, a wonderful resource page in the back. This is so good. Overall, there's just a lot of depth in this guidebook, which is why it came in at my number 3 top favorite tarot guidebooks. Coming in at number 2 is the Star Tarot, which may surprise some of you because I don't talk about this deck often. And in fact, I wouldn't say I use this deck very often. Same thing with the Druidcraft. For what they are, they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful decks. And I do expect to actually be getting back into this in a lot more depth now that I'm studying the Thoth Tarot, because there's a lot of Thoth in this deck. I don't I'm not 100% clear yet, although I have some feelings about just how thothy this deck is, but it's like, this is very thoth. There's a lot of heavy thoth influence in this deck, which I didn't know before, which actually just goes as a testament to how incredible this deck is to work with. My copy is fully trimmed, and I've used a silver Sharpie here to note the Roman numeral of the major arcana card or the number and alchemical elemental symbol. But it's a really gorgeously illustrated deck to begin with. But the guidebook, you guys, much like the Robin Wood, actually, the Star Tarot's guidebook entries are written in such a way. Let's go to, what are we on here? The Queen of Water. So let's go to the Queen of Cups. So this one, just like the Druidcraft Tarot, you get a full page on the number. So here's a full page on the number 9, and what it can mean. And then you get the individual cards for the 9 of Wands, the 9 of Swords, the 9 of Cups, and the 9 of Pentacles. And that goes like that the whole way through. I can't remember if the quartz are in the back. Yeah, the quartz are in the back. So same thing. We get all the knights grouped together, all the queens grouped together, all the kings, etc. So here we have a full, what is this, page and a half? Yeah, about a page worth of text just about the energy of the queen. And then you also get, as part of this write-up, when you get into the individual cards, you'll notice there's bolded words. Okay, here you can really see it. See all these bolded words? These are all different symbols that you see on the card. So for example, for the Queen, I think this is the Queen of Wands I'm on. Yeah, let's get to the Queen of Cups so I can show you what I mean. Queen of Cups. Okay, so we get to this section where you can see all these bolded words. So it talks about the Holy Grail that she's holding. It talks about the full moon rising out of the larger grail. It talks about the magical golden papyrus growing out of the deep subconscious waters. It talks about the blue lotus flowers that are on this card, as well as the scarlet ibis, which is down here in this corner here. Talks about the necklace that she's wearing, the 3 braids on either side of her head, her crown, and a mandala. So it basically, the bold text draws your eye right to different symbols that you'll see on the card and what those mean. So in addition to just a really in-depth meaning for the card, you also get specifically the symbols on the card are highlighted, pointed out, explained. Again, everything here is purposeful, much like in the Thoth Tarot, much like in the Robin Wood, and this book helps you understand that purpose, which is incredible. The other thing that you'll find in all of the cards is different astrological and other associations. So in the court cards, you get the lunar aspect, the sacred day, so this card is associated with Beltane, according to this author. The astrological aspect for this card as Cancer, the element, water of water, the shield is a mandala in this case, and keywords, heart of gold, mother, goddess of water. And so, for example, in a regular minor arcana card, let's take a look at the 2 of Cups. And again, I love that it's kind of ordered numerologically here. It's so well done. Okay, so 2 of Cups. No, that's not the 2 of Cups. That's the 5 of Cups. I was looking at these 2 big cups and got myself mixed up. Okay, let's go to the 5s. 5 of Swords, 5 of Cups. Okay, so in the 5 of Cups here, you can see the Rider-Waite-Smith here, right? But you can also see, so this is Mars in Scorpio. It tells you which decan. So this is 0 to 10 degrees in Scorpio. It's fixed water. It's lunar cycle. It's keywords. And again, you now have the spilled cups, the 3 spilled cups of loss, disappointment, and regret. Dark clouds hanging overhead as rain teems down in this dark realm of despair. Rainbow butterflies for the 7 chakras. The rainbow symbolizes blah, the brilliant sun. Like it goes through all of the symbols on the card so that you know what you're looking at and why it's relevant to the meaning. And again, that just makes this so well done. I'm really excited to actually dig back into this because this 5 of Swords, is very reminiscent of the 5 of Swords in the Thoth Tarot, and a lot of the cards really are giving me Thoth vibes, so I'm excited about that. But I do think this deck overall is a blending or a harmonizing of various systems. I am tempted to get, this is the older version of the deck that was glossy. It is now available in a new edition from Schiffer Red Feather that has a matte cardstock, but I don't know, and I think the artwork's bigger. But as you can see, I've edged this and trimmed this, and I'm kind of attached to this particular copy. So I don't know that I'll bother getting the newer edition, but I do need to kind of size down my bag for it at some point because the deck actually turns all the way sideways in this Peggy bag. So it actually can go all the way down to the bottom like that. So I should really size down the bag at some point, but this is another OG Peggy bag. And you must be wondering what came in at number 1. It is The Dreams of Gaia Tarot. You've probably heard me rave about this book in the past. If you are interested in tarot from a personal growth, a psychological aspect, this guidebook, this deck specifically, will speak your speak. My large original cards that came in the set with this really big chunky guidebook are in storage because I was gifted a small copy of the pocket Dreams of Gaia, and I just really enjoy this cardstock, and I like that the art is borderless. So I prefer working with this smaller version of the deck alongside the guidebook. And this little guidebook is actually pretty well done that comes with this kit. You get a couple snippets from the bigger guidebook in here. It's very much just a reminder of what's in the big guidebook, in my opinion, but it is really quite nice. So these are the cards that I've been using, but the guidebook, oh my gosh, I could never rehome this deck because of this guidebook. But you can see, I used to do this with all my tarot guidebooks way back in the day. So if you ever see that, that's something I can't remember. I must have seen somebody somewhere do it, but the major arcana cards are marked with on the side of the edges of the paper with purple. Then I have green for pentacles, yellow for swords, red for wands, and blue for cups. So I can right away find what I'm looking for in the book. When I tell you, so a couple things are important to know about the Dreams of Gaia. It has changed the tarot structure. Look at this. The corner of the book is chewed on. That is because, hold on, are you going to focus? There we go. That is because I had a bird and he nibbled on my book. Anyway, fun things. It's been some places. Okay, here's the important thing. This guidebook, so let's look at the youth. So it changes the structure. So in the traditional tarot, the youth would be the card number 3 would actually be the Empress. But in the major arcana of the Dreams of Gaia, you actually have more than 22 cards. You have, I think, 24. Let me double check here. 22, 23, 23. Nope, 24. 24. So I was right. So it's broken up some of the cards up so that you have different stages of a life journey, but it's incredibly well done, very well thought out, but it's got a very psychological bent to this deck. So for every card, especially in the majors, you get keywords and key phrases. This is the chunk you'll find in the little white book of this little pocket version of the deck. Then you get meanings. So you get a very descriptive chunk of text about what's happening in the card. Then you get a whole chunk of text if this card is in the past position, a whole chunk if it's in the present, a whole chunk if it's in the future, and a chunk for potential blockages. And you get that through the entire major arcana. When you get into the minor arcana, so let's get into the swords here. So you still get the keywords and these key phrases, and these are so good. So for example, the 3 of air in this deck is about education, talent, and study. So growth of the mind, which makes sense numerologically. The key phrases are things like expand your mind, education is a lifelong process, don't kill the messenger, lessons repeat until we understand, ignorance is nothing to be proud of. And then you get a meaning, which again, quite lengthy. And then you get potential blockage. But look at how much you get for a minor arcana card. Like, so here we have the 3 of air. We have like half a page here, a full page here, and another half page here, and then a chunky paragraph about potential blockage being kind of like your reversed or your shadowed meaning. You get that throughout the entire thing, but there is so much wonderful psychology, in my opinion, in the majors. It just really is wonderful for healing. It's a very nurturing deck. It will definitely take you on an entire journey. This completely changed the way that I looked at tarot, which is one of the reasons it's my #1 top favorite. Yes, it does mess with the structure of tarot, and I can be kind of a purist in a lot of ways, but this deck does something special and it's worth reading the guidebook, even if you don't end up working with the deck, in my opinion, because there's just some really excellent stuff in here. And I will say that I work with this deck kind of as its own thing. I still wouldn't call it an oracle though. It's still very much a tarot to me. But that is the deck guidebook that came in at #1. So let's talk about some honorable mentions. So the first category of honorable mentions that I want to talk about are decks, guidebooks that are among my tippy top favorites, but these decks are currently out of print. I believe both of these decks are planning for a reprint. The first of these is Baba Studio's Alice Tarot. I've talked about this even somewhat recently. This is a wonderful, it's actually the thickest Baba Studio's guidebook I own, and I think I have 4 Baba Studio's decks. This is the chunkiest. And part of the reason that is because, and this is my favorite part of this guidebook, so I'm just going to start here. In the back of the guidebook, starting at page 220 out of 285? Yeah, out of 285 pages. So you get about 65 pages of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is the abridged story. So it's literally the story by Lewis Carroll, but it's been abridged. And you have thumbnails for each of the Alice tarot cards where they show up in the story. This is how I fell in love with Alice in Wonderland, was this guidebook specifically. So it is a favorite. It's really well done guidebook, but I just love that it takes the deck right into the story of Alice in Wonderland. And if I remember correctly, Through the Looking Glass is also in here. Let me just double check. Yeah, there's the end, and now you have Through the Looking Glass. Yeah, that's what I thought. So you go through both. It was after reading this book, and the individual card entries are also really incredible, many times including like extracts of the text to begin with to remind you of where this is in the story. It's a very, very well done guidebook. You can tell it is a labor of love. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And what I especially like is that what Karen Mahoney did with this guidebook is that she included for every deck, or excuse me, for every card, the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meaning of the card and some specific meanings as they relate to Alice's story. So you can work with the traditional meanings, or you can look at the Alice meanings, which is so clever. It lets you go into this deck in a different way if you so choose. And I think that was just really, really smart. The other guidebook that is for a deck that is currently out of print and probably coming back, and I have raved about before, is the Wild Messengers Alchemical Tarot Guidebook. This is a standalone for me. I don't need the deck to work with this book. However, that being said, I fell so in love with the book, which I was gifted, that I then went out and bought the deck to use with the book. But really, to me, the book is a way, or the deck is a way to work with the book. So the Wild Messengers deck is really... Look at this, there's the backings. The artwork is this like galaxy theme with animals, and it's got the title of the card or the number of the card and its alchemical symbol. It's really, really pretty. The deck by itself doesn't give me a lot, but the guidebook is out of this world. It is so good. I'm actually working on a secret modification project, which I will share with you guys at some point with that deck. But oh my God, this book is so good. This book got me excited about alchemy. There is a whole section. Is it in the back? I think it's in the back. Yeah, it starts right around. Is it here? The Alchemy of Awakening? Yeah, it starts. There's some card spreads in here too. Hold on. Yeah, the Alchemy of Awakening. So this is where we get into alchemy as a process. This is like a little beginner's primer to alchemy. It talks about all the phases of alchemy, and it also kind of, it makes it so common language, easy to understand. If you are even remotely sort of curious about alchemy, this section alone is like so good. It's so good. But then the actual guidebook, which by the way, you can kind of tell the edges of the pages are already kind of pre-marked for you, so that you can easily find your way to the correct suit, which is amazing because I didn't have to do it. It did it for me. But every single entry, whether it's major or minor, gives you so much. So you get a really nice, beautiful piece of artwork showing who's in the card, right? Gorgeous full page artwork. And this is a hardbound book with a built-in bookmark and holographic foiling. It's stunning. Anyway, so you get the information about the animal, the name of the card. You have an invocation. This is so powerful. It's kind of like almost like a prayer to this animal, like seeking its wisdom, which is so incredible. Then it gives you a ton of information about the animal. It gives a ton of information of like the kind of wisdom. So here it says, this is called a carousel or caracal in this card, which is the 9 of, what element are we in? The 9 of earth, I think. No, this is a major. This is the hermit. Hello. Wake up, Lisa. Anyways, in this hermit card, you get all the information about the animal, and you can really right away see how that relates to the tarot card. Then you get Caracal Speaks. So this is as if this animal is talking to you, and this is so good. And then there's more. There's like action steps you can take to work with this energy. There's exercises you can do. And when you get into the minors, there's no skimping. I really love the way the minors are laid out. So you have a smaller image of your artwork. You still have an invocation, which is so powerful. Still a bunch of information about this particular creature. And you still get the wisdom. Dragonfly Speaks, where it's as if Dragonfly is talking to you. Y'all, this is so good. I just hesitated to put it in my top 10 because you can't get this right now, I don't think. I think even the book is sold out. I do hope this deck and book comes back for reprint, but for a long time, I would use this book alongside whatever my regular tarot card draw of the day was, regardless of which deck it was. I would, at the end of the day, come in here and read everything that I could about that card its equivalent in this deck. And it was such a cool practice. Like I said, I eventually got the deck just as a reason to work with the book more. Do you know what I mean? So this is incredible. Honorable mention to the Wild Messengers Alchemical. If you get a chance to get one, I highly recommend it. Okay, the next two honorable mentions are honorable mentions because I'm pretty sure I'm going to love them, but I have not worked with them yet. So these are sort of not recommendations so much as books I'm really excited about. The first one of those is the guidebook for the Tarot of Vampires, and it's called Phantasmagoria. And I don't know what it is, but ever since I first kind of found out about this deck, which is relatively recent, the deck is not new. I found out about the deck relatively recently. I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere and everybody's talking about it. And I don't know if it's one of those things where like I'm manifesting it because I'm so into this idea. But this is the Tarot of Vampires, in my opinion, seems to be heavily Thoth-based, but you can really see the Rider-Waite-Smith in it too. But this book, you guys, like I've done a little bit of a flip through just to kind of see what I think. It is meaty. It is really, really chunky, and it is 301 pages long. There is so much in here. I'm so super excited to get into this. From what I can tell, again, it has a very heavy Thoth influence. And now that I've been studying Thoth, this deck just really excites me in general. There's wonderful charts here about the decans. There is a ton of good information from what I can see in this book, and I'm so excited to get into it. So that is the Phantasmagoria, which is the guidebook that comes with the Tarot of Vampires, which I should show you the actual cards. I haven't done my walkthrough yet, so they're still in order here in the box. I don't even have a peggy bag for them yet. But if you haven't seen it, this deck is a really kind of gothic, dark, kind of spooky vampire themed deck, but I love the artwork. It's incredible. So I'm really, really, really excited. And there's a ton of symbology in the cards. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get into it. And I'm pretty sure I found out about this deck from Racine, who is Almoon513 here on YouTube. I hope I got her channel name right. But I'm so excited to get into this deck and guidebook. And I don't even know if I'll be able to wait until later in the year. I think I'm going to just be dipping into this relatively soon. Very excited about that. So that's honorable mention because I haven't really worked with it yet. And the next one that is honorable mention, because I haven't worked with it yet, is the Book of Maps Revelation. Holy moly. I, in large part, purchased the Spirit Keepers Tarot, which is what this book goes along with. I purchased the Spirit Keepers Tarot Revelation Edition, which I have not done a walkthrough of or worked with. It's still pre-bonding, so we haven't done our work yet. But I bought this deck in large part for this book. Now, I had the first edition Spirit Keepers Tarot and the original Book of Maps, but this is a whole new thing because now, not only is it in full color, and it's just, it's really well done. Not only that, but it was something that Benabelle had on her website or somewhere where she said it's almost like a witchy social studies class. And y'all, I was not a big fan of social studies. I'm not going to pretend that I was. But that really excited me because I feel like there's so much culture. And I know because it's Benabelle that it will be incredibly well researched. And I just feel like this is like taking a master's course in tarot. And oh, I'm really excited about this change to this card. I remember this card because I colored this card in my Book of Maps. Anyway, wow. Oh, that's so pretty. It even has the names. Okay, I'm not going to get into it. Okay, the point is that you get a ton of information in this book, not only about this tarot, but oh my gosh, what is all of this? Y'all, anyways, I'm really excited. That's the point. I'm really excited about this book. If you have done work with the Book of Maps for the Revelation Edition, I would love to hear your comments down below. Or if you have experiences with any of the books I've been sharing in this video, I would definitely love to hear your thoughts. But I'm real excited about this because look, it makes my tarot nerd heart so, so happy. So that is an honorable mention because I just can't wait to get into it. And that brings us to our last two honorable mentions. Yeah, I know there's almost as many honorable mentions as there was top 10, but that's fine. These are books that are just over the top. They're beautiful. They're well done. To me, they're more art books than tarot books, but I had to mention them. Again, over the top, but gorgeous. The first of these is by James R. Eads, and this is the Big Visions book, which is a book of both the Book of Prismavisions Tarot and of the Cosmovisions Oracle. So you hold it this way. It's gorgeous fabric cover with foil accent. It's beautiful. So when you hold the book this way, it's about the Cosmovisions Oracle. And when you flip it over, it's the Book of Prismavisions. So it's really, really beautiful. It's got a built-in bookmark, of course. It's heavy, thick, glossy paper that I love. This is so beautiful. Yeah, look at this. It's just gorgeous. To me, this is more an art book even than a guidebook. But of course, the guidebook information's all there. It's just a really beautifully produced book. So it's an honorable mention because, again, it's over the top. It's really luxurious and gorgeous, and I just think it's really special. But it's not like my go-to for as a resource. It's just an incredibly beautiful book that I really, it's even got black edged pages. Are you kidding? Come on. It's just really pretty. So the book nerd in me is like, this is so cool. So I had to share it. And then the other over the top, can you guess what it is? It's the most over the top tarot guidebook, in my opinion, that has ever existed. And it is the Deviant Moon Tarot coffee table book. I don't even know what else you'd call this. I'm scared to take the sticker off because I don't want it to rip my cover. But this is such a beautifully produced book. It's gorgeous. If you are interested in the Deviant Moon Tarot or just tarot art, I feel like this is just a special production all by itself. Like, look at the end papers. And then for every card, look at this gorgeous giant artwork. And for context, you guys, let's just do a little context. So this is the Deviant Moon Tarot. This is, oh, can I even show it here? How much the size difference is? That's Bennabelle's book. So it is a big book. Like, where's a regular kind of, here's like a regular guidebook, right? Like it's massive. It's also expensive. And somebody very generously sent this to me as a gift because I was having such a hard time. I was just having such a hard time justifying this book, but it is wonderful. It talks about Patrick Valenz's kind of journey with creating this tarot. Not only do you get like wonderful art full up, close in, but you also get a really wonderful description, an upright and a reverse meaning, and a ton of behind the scenes information about every card, which is so cool. You get to see earlier sketches and drawings. I've got a Monstera bookmark in my Temperance card. This is really fun to work with as a book. It's one of those things, it's so wholly impractical because when I'm working with the Deviant Moon Tarot, I'm not going to lug this thing around. But I have read pretty much the entire thing at this point, and it's just a joy to read and to flip through and to look at. And you obviously don't need your deck with you when you're reading it because you have such beautiful big images of the cards. This is gorgeous. This is such a treasure. So I had to share that. Even though it's super over the top, it is an incredible, incredible book. All right, y'all. That was my top 10 plus 6 honorable mentions. Favorite tarot guidebooks of all time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to hear what your favorite tarot guidebooks are, whether they are separate, sold separately tarot guidebooks for specific decks, or whether they come in sets with the specific decks. But those deck-specific books, I would love to hear what your favorites are. So let us know that in the comments down below. Thank you again so much for hanging out with me. These videos are so much fun for me to film, but they wouldn't be nearly as fun if y'all weren't watching and enjoying it too. So thank you so much. Remember, if you enjoyed this content, if you found value in the video, do remember to click the like button. It really, really helps the channel. Subscribe if you're new here, if you want more tarot and tarot deck related content. Don't forget to click the little notification bell. Thank you all so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.